City Council for the City of Los Angeles on the 9th day of July 1999. There are 15 council districts in the city. The regular meeting days are Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. We are currently being viewed by cable subscribers throughout the Los Angeles area on Channel 35, and we're also being monitored by council phone. First order of business.
Approval of the minutes.
Mr. Savornich moves, Mr. Padilla seconds. If there's no objection, unanimous vote. The next item.
Commendatory resolutions for approval.
If there's no objection, unanimous vote. We do have some presentations today. We're going to start with Mrs. Chick. Did you have a presentation?
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to ask some very special people from a very good corporate citizen, BFI, to come up and join me at the podium. While I tell my colleagues and viewers why I have you up here. Most of us, or many of us, watched the news on June 7th as over 100 LAPD officers, LA County Sheriff deputies, and LA County Fire Department search and rescue workers made a dramatic effort to find a woman who had been lost for 3 days in the wilderness area in the North San Fernando Valley at the Sunshine Canyon landfill, which is owned and operated by BFI. We saw how her 8-year-old son was found by a BFI employee early on Monday morning, June 7th. He told a frightening and chilling story that his mother and he had driven onto the property on Friday afternoon, that their car had become stuck, and his mother went out to find help. He never saw her again. He was alone in the wilderness for 2.5 days without food or water, and he is a very, very lucky man to have been found, young boy to have been found. His mother was also found, finally, late Monday night with the use of a heat-sensing device mounted on a helicopter. While we are very grateful for the work of our city and county staff, I wanted this morning to commend BFI for its exemplary role in ensuring a happy ending to this potential tragedy. BFI found the small boy, fed him, and called the police. They then proceeded to turn over their offices to the police as a command center, gladly donating their phones, their vehicles, and their staff to aid in this search for the missing mother. They also provided food and drink for all the public rescuers, and in short, demonstrated once again that they are excellent corporate neighbors and citizens. Here this morning from BFI are Dan Templis, BFI Vice President who runs the Sunshine Canyon landfill, Jim Aducas, BFI's Environmental Director, Sonny Garcia, the BFI employee who found the little boy, Sandy Miller Goldman, BFI's Community Affairs Director, and Peril Harrell, a BFI employee who took care of this little boy. They all had a key role in finding the lost woman, and the city thanks all of you for your very worthwhile and productive endeavors. And I wanted to give you this certificate of appreciation and ask if one of you would like to say a few words.
Sure. Thank you.
Congratulations. Thank you. You better put that up.
Right. Well, thank you very much. This is quite an honor to be here today. And we were very happy, actually, that the outcome of this whole event was a positive one. The little boy was found fine and healthy, and the mother was found fine and healthy. And living in a big metropolitan area like this, I'm not sure that the outcome is always as positive as it was. So we felt very good about it. The police department LAPD was wonderful, and we helped them out, and the outcome was great. And thank you very much.
Wonderful. Thank you. We'll go in the back after for pictures. Thank you. That's what we call good teamwork, colleagues. And now I'd like to call up a very special member of the city family, or at least he was until a couple of weeks ago. Ed Cavan, please. Colleagues, we have a very special man before us today. Ed Cavan has been a dedicated and valued employee of the Community Redevelopment Agency of our city for 30 years. His retirement represents an enormous personal and professional loss for the agency and for the city. In my district, his work played an especially significant role in the successful creation of the Madrid Theater. Through all of that, his ability to work with the contractors and subcontractors while balancing the bureaucracies of the CRA and the federal government was absolutely amazing. And he also did some very good hand-holding for me and my staff. He deserves our recognition and our deep appreciation. He has been responsible for a lot of other things in your district. For instance, the management and successful completion of projects such as the Egyptian Theater, the Trizicon project in Hollywood, Vista Montoya condominium project, Pershing Square Park, and 8 state-of-the-art child care centers, just to name a few. He retired from the CRA on June 29th of this year. He will be greatly missed by many of us, by many of his colleagues at the CRA, and members of the rest of the city family. I want to congratulate you on your retirement, although it's with regrets, present you with this resolution from the City Council, and give you an opportunity to say some farewell words to my colleagues and the rest of the city. Thank you very much, Ed.
Thank you. It's quite an honor to be here.
Come up to the mic.
It's quite an honor to be here. I appreciate the honor, and I cherish this. It will be in my new office wherever I go. Thank you.
We wish you good luck in your future endeavors. Thank you, colleagues.
Chair recognizes Mr. Ferraro for a presentation.
Members of the council, this is Lottie Schaefer, who worked for the city attorney's office for 25 years. She was the one who gave George Buchanan all the instructions when he represented the city attorney in the city council chamber. And if you remember, he was pretty tough, and she urged him on. Is that right, Lottie? Let me point out that she was born in Newcastle, Pennsylvania, and moved to Upland, California in 1956. You were born in 1956, or you moved here in 1956?
Born a little before.
Yeah. She has been an executive legal secretary in the Office of City Attorney, where she has worked for 25 years and has provided invaluable, outstanding service during the terms of office of 4 city attorneys. And whereas she established herself as an irreplaceable resource, not only in the Office of City Attorney, but for all the city departments. Whereas always providing excellent service to the attorneys and other city staffs that directly assisted the City Council in conduct of its business, Lottie ensured that reports, ordinances, and key city attorney staff were available and aware of what and was ready to respond to council's request. Whereas Lottie has 3 children, Cindy, Roberta, and Ronald Peller. Cindy and Roberta live in Sherman Oaks, near her in Sherman Oaks, and Ronald, his wife, Tracy, and 2 children, Nicholas and Jessica, live in Marin County. Her hobby has been traveling. She's been both in Europe and Asia, but her greatest desire is to move to Marin County. She's going to move out of the city after her retirement to be near her grandchildren. Now therefore be it resolved that the Los Angeles City Council, by the adoption of this resolution, commends and congratulates Lottie Schaefer for her outstanding dedication to the City Attorney's Office and to the people and citizens of Los Angeles, and extends best wishes on the occasion of her retirement and all of her future endeavors. This is presented by me and seconded by Joel Wax, and I want to congratulate Lottie on the great service to the City of Los Angeles and ask her to say a few words. Now, Lottie, you can be very honest. You can say anything you want. We can't hold up your pension check.
First you take the resolution, then you say anything you want.
Oh, this is wonderful. This is wonderful. I've seen so many of these, and I just very envious of seeing them. You know, they're just wonderful. The calligrapher does such a wonderful job. The words are just so wonderful, and it's like seeing George Buchanan yesterday at my retirement party. And I thought, God, I just never expected that he would be at my retirement party. It was so great when he had one, you know. But thank you very much. This is wonderful. Some of the council members are gone that we knew many years ago. Geez, years ago there was 5 days. Council was in 5 days. How'd they all do it? I don't know. You know, it would go for a long time. 6 o'clock many days, but it's been wonderful. The city attorney's office has been very good to me. We have wonderful people up there, starting with the city attorney on down, and I just want you to know it's been a great experience. It's just been wonderful, and working with the city council, that's an honor. That's an honor. Really is. We have the best city in the nation, and I travel a lot. This is the best city in the nation, the best city in the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Lottie.
Lottie, good luck to you, and have a great retirement. It won't be much of a retirement with the grandchildren around. Thank you.
Thank you. Chair recognizes Mr. Savornich for a presentation. Is that right? Okay, we're going to hold that one for a moment. So I think we're ready to move to the agenda. We have the first item.
Item number 2 on the regular agenda, the request to continue that matter until August 6th.
Any objection to continuing that matter? Hearing none, that'll be the order.
Item number 8 on the regular agenda is extension of interim appointment of George Ratkus to the LA Convention Center.
Mr. Ratkus here. Ratkus, he's not here. Are you here? I guess not. We're on item 8. George Ratkus.
Did you approve everything else? Okay, the next item.
The reappointment of Mr. Rakes as general manager of the convention center.
That is for 30 days.
For, I think the maximum time we can do is 180 days.
Yeah, well, but we continue hoping to get some.
We actually heard it in committee. I can,
Okay.
there should be a report. We urge that we would continue it for, that we continue the interim appointment for 60 days and ask for a report back on after 30 days. This was at the suggestion of the CLA's office because this has been an interim position for more than 2 years, so.
Fine, I would move that.
Okay. Mr. Hernandez, did you want to be heard?
Mr. President, I was just standing to move the committee report.
Okay. All right, prepare the roll on the committee report. Mrs. Waller's motion, tabulate the vote.
14 eyes.
That is approved. Forthwith on that. Next item.
On the regular agenda, item notice for public hearing is item number 1.
Anybody in the chamber wants to be heard on item number 1? Seeing none, prepare the roll on the ordinance. Tabulate the vote.
14 eyes.
That is approved. Forthwith on that item. Next item.
Items number 3 through 7 are public hearings have been held.
What about 2? Did we do 2?
We continued number 2.
2 is continued. Special on 3. Special on 4. 5, 6, and 7. Anybody want to be heard on any of those items? Public hearings have been held. Any other specials? 5, 6, or 7? Mr. Holden has asked that 4 be continued until Tuesday. Is there any objections to that? Seeing none, that will be the order. Okay, 5, 6, and 7 we have before us. Prepare the roll, tabulate the vote.
14 eyes.
Those are approved. Forthwith on 6. And 7. Forthwith on 6 and 7. Next item.
Items number 9 through 24 are items for which public hearings have not been held.
9 through 27.
24.
You didn't put that down here today, you know. All right. Anybody else wants to be heard on any of those items? Seeing none, the public hearing is closed.
16.
Any specials by council members?
11, continue 2 weeks, please, Mr. President.
Continue 11, 2 weeks. Is there any objections to that? Seeing none, that will be the order. 25. 25 is called special. Any other specials? 25 special? We call that special, yeah. Any other specials? Okay, we have 9 through 25 with the exception of 11, which has been acted on, and 25, which is called special. Tabulate the vote.
14 eyes.
Those are approved. Forthwith on 21. Next item.
Excuse me, Mr. President, I'd like to ask for reconsideration of item number 8. That was the George Rakes issue, because the report before us, which I assume reflects the committee report, indicates that they met on June 9th and extended it 30 days to July 9th. Well, today's July 9th, so we need to do that longer than July 9th.
No.
And I would move that we make it for 60 days with this 30-day review.
Mr. President, I concur with what Ms. Walters just stated. I was under the impression the report that we were voting on was a report from yesterday's special revised CED committee.
Which was 30 days from...
It was yesterday's meeting, and at that time, the discussion was...
So let's extend it to August 10th. Is that, any objections to that? August 10th?
No, that's another 30 days.
Yeah, so we moved for 60 days.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
I did move for 60 days, but if the president was more comfortable with 30, it's fine.
Well, that's the same thing, 60 days from,
The date the committee met.
yeah. All right. There's been, item's been reconsidered, and the date is now August 10th, which is another 30 days from today.
Okay.
I'll prepare the roll on that, tabulate the vote.
14 eyes.
That is approved. Now we'll send that forthwith. All right, the next item.
Item number 3 called special.
Item number 3 is called special. Members of the council, we do have a lot of people who want to be heard.
I'd like to move a 10-minute hearing, please.
Okay. David Lieber, and then Carmen Rogers, or Rogers would be next. I want to take a picture here.
It's David Leader, sir.
Go ahead.
Okay, I'm here to speak about the neighborhood councils. The basic problem is that the Business Improvement District, now I admit this matter is most intense in Hollywood, is acting right now. It has become the de facto municipal government of Hollywood. They even have their own police force. They have their own jail in Hollywood where they take people. So my point is the existence of the BIDs make the whole issue of neighborhood councils irrelevant, since they develop their commercial revitalization plan, which is a commercial plan for the area. They get government grants. They have their own police forces. So in effect, we've got a constitutional conflict with the issue of neighborhood councils. To my mind, once the charter came into effect, the BID should have been invalidated. How are we going to have a shadow government, a BID shadow government, in cooperation with the Chamber of Commerce's and the CRA, and at the same time have the neighborhood councils? It's a paradox. The other thing I'd like to mention is what I predict will tend to happen with appointing members to this neighborhood council. I want to bring up the experience of the Hollywood Police Board, the CPAB. According to what the acting captain of the police told me, Mr. Diaz in Hollywood, 26 members of the police board are from the Chamber of Commerce, and that's subtracting at least 10
Yeah,
policemen.
Mr. Lieber, we only have 10 minutes
Okay.
and you're done.
So my point is this, that based on this experience, I predict that if there isn't serious, enlightened overview of these neighborhood councils, the Chamber of Commerce
all right, thank
will
you.
dominate them. Thank you, Mr.
Carmen
President.
Rogers, and then Bobby Fiedler.
Hi, I know we're short on time. I have comments, if these can be passed out to city council members, that are more extensive. I'm representing the Neighborhood Participation Research Project at the School of Policy Planning and Development at USC. Our research group has reviewed the proposed Chapter 28, and these are our comments on how we feel about the language in the ordinance. There are three main themes that we feel need to be looked at especially, and those concern service provision, planning functions, and also budgetary involvement. As far as service provision goes, we see that service facilitation may divert and overload the D&E. References listed in the duties of the department related to direct service provision may cause bureaucratic fragmentation and create confusion concerning accountability. Now, we do, to a certain extent, agree with the mayor's suggestion to change the language to facilitate communication, but we also see this possibly causing a bureaucratic screening process that will divert support from the neighborhood councils. As far as planning functions go, we also see the coordinating role is excessive in that it creates too much needless bureaucracy, and that a lot of this language seems to create a bureaucracy function of a top-down system instead of the bottom-up system that these neighborhood councils should be providing.
Thank you. Bobby Fiedler, and then Harry Coleman.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, and congratulations to all of those who are here for the first time as new council members, and to our new President Pro Tem. I want to talk to you about a couple of issues related to the neighborhood councils that I'm very concerned about. One is, though the existing organizations that exist throughout the city, which represent hundreds of thousands of volunteers, many of them are extremely confused. I've met with a number of them from across the city, and they are very confused about what the implication is going to be for them. Are they going to be subsumed into the neighborhood councils, losing a lot of their power and influence, or is the city council going to make certain that those organizations are carefully protected and not required to participate in the neighborhood council process as a part of the system? I think it's extremely important. People are very confused about it, and you must deal with this matter, hopefully, in the very near future. Organizations are worried that they're going to have to go through the neighborhood councils in order to get any services or any attention, and I would hope that that doesn't become the process. Also, there are three words in the document that is before you: facilitate, monitor, and deliver. As you read through that document, you'll see that the delivery of services is also extremely confusing. Who is going to do it? How is it going to happen? Are we going to have to go to the community council for services? Can we go to the departments that deliver those services independently of the neighborhood council? Or is there going to be requirements that the monitoring process that they'll be a part of is going to have an effect on the outcome? One other item, and that is that I feel strongly that this is not yet ready for a final vote from this council, and I would hope that you would send it back to committee so we can have some further deliberations on these issues and deal with them. Mr. Chairman, thank you very much for your time.
Harry Coleman.
Well, Bobby's pretty well covered it all. There's not much left.
Okay, that's fine.
Thank you, John. You've all received a copy of our report, and I think it's self-explaining. And we understand that there is another committee which hasn't been formed yet. If it doesn't go to that committee, that it would go back to the GE committee. This needs a lot more input, and I think most of the council members will agree.
All right. Bennett Kreiser.
Good morning, and thank you, Mr. President, for letting me speak tonight, or this morning. During the last 2 years, the two charter commissions, both the elected charter commission and the appointed charter commission, as well as the government efficiency committee of this council, heard from hundreds of people about the neighborhood council issue. And what's before you today in your staff report is an excellent consensus that was put together from hearing all of these people from all of these groups along the city. I would certainly hope that you would support the committee report, vote for it today, and let's get the neighborhoods organizing and get the neighborhood councils moving. Thank you very much.
Richard Macias.
Mr. President, members of the council, I'm here today on behalf of the Lincoln Heights Chamber of Commerce in Mr. Hernandez's district and the Boyle Heights Chamber of Commerce in Mr. Pacheco's district. We support this ordinance. We appreciate the reality that cost is a factor, and it should be a factor, and that can be addressed at the appropriate time in the future. We would like to be involved in this process during the next year and also in the process of the actual councils in the future. And we look forward to working with the council on this matter. Thank you.
Fran Reckenbacher.
Hi, John, Council. I'm here today because there's been some confusion amongst the people in the Hollywood Hills. We have formed an unofficial alliance between the heads of the Argyle Civic, the Hollywood Dells, Lake Hollywood Estates, Los Feliz Home Improvement Association, and the Oaks and the Knolls. We all feel like that we'd like to participate in the process of forming neighborhood councils, and we'd like to be invited in on the process formally, like in writing. We'd like to know when there are any open meetings, John. Okay, John? Let us know when there are any open meetings, because we want to all come en masse, the leaders of these communities, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sandra Caden.
Hello, I'm Alexandra Caden, President of the League of Women Voters. I'd like to urge you to recognize that what's before you today is the beginning of the process. It's not the end of the process. It's required by the charter that we create, that you create, a Department of Neighborhoods, and that once the department is created, the commission and the department will develop the guidelines that will lead to the creation of neighborhood councils. This is not the neighborhood councils. The confusion that I think you've heard just before was about people who are wanting to be involved, but there's nothing yet there. There's nothing in the ordinance that would that would direct the city in any direction other than to create the department and begin the process. And I think, I know this is a difficult issue, it's going to be a very complex issue, but I think we ought to get started on it. Thank you.
Thank you. J.H. McQuiston, and then Jerry Gaines, and I think we'll be out of time.
Good morning. I represent the East Hollywood Community Association, which is probably the only community association that complies with the proposed ordinance. We have looked over it carefully, and we support it, except that it has 15 substantial differences between the city charter, the new city charter, and the language in the ordinance. We think that must be fixed. We don't want to see these conflicts between the city charter and the ordinance. It's not a matter of substantial work. It's a matter of conforming the language to the city charter.
All right. Jerry Gaines. And then I'm going to call on Candido Mars as the last one.
President Farrar, members of the council, as a participant in the appointed charter commission, which you all know we worked on for 2 years, I just want to emphasize that we had a lot of hard work on this particular topic. We started with a focus group approach with our communities. We studied 15 major cities, and there's a lot of background that was behind this entire process you're about to start. And I think it was just mentioned, you are starting the process. There's a lot of opportunity for a lot of the concerns you just heard to be worked out in that process. And as part of that commission, we urge you to go forward. Thank you very much for your support.
So that has to go to the Recreation and Parks Commission. Candido Mars.
Thank you, Mr. President, council members. I just want to concur with Ms. Fiedler that I agree that it should go back to council. As a member of the Citizens Unit of Participation, Housing and Urban Development, we have issues there that we're asking each other about what's going to happen with CUP. And there are just a lot of issues that need to be dealt with, so please send it back to committee and let's review it a little longer.
The members, there's just a couple more, so let's do Merle Singer and then Eugene Austin.
Thank you. Today I'm representing Yucca Carter Coalition and Hollywood Dale Civic Association. We support the process that you've done so far. There are questions that people have brought up that will need to be considered. We just want you to know that we are organizations, homeowners organizations, that are interested in this process and helping you make it work. Thank you.
Okay, Eugene Austin.
Good morning, Mr. President, members of the council. My name is Eugene Austin, and I represent the Argyle Civic Association. We'd like to tell you that we do support what's taken place to this point, and that is preparing a document that will enable the department to become a reality, and then the nuts and bolts of putting in guidelines and the discussions that's been pointed out here this morning will be dealt with. But we strongly urge that any committees that are going to make any kind of decisions on this issue be open and notify the community groups that's demonstrated an active interest in this project, so that they might become involved in those committee hearings. Thank you.
You members, that's all the cards we have, so the public hearing is closed. Remember, Mr. Burnson called me and wanted this matter be continued and referred to the charter, the ad hoc committee that I will be appointing next week. So I just throw that out. It was his request.
Can I
Mrs.
explain?
Chick, I'm going to...
As the committee chair, may I explain it?
That's fine.
Mr. Wax.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of council. The ordinance that you have before you today comes with the unanimous recommendation of the Governmental Efficiency Committee, Councilman Ridley Thomas, Councilwoman Chick, and myself after months and actually years of work on this issue. It is an historic first step. It is an historic first step towards opening city government up to the people of this city, and it is the first legal step in implementing the public mandated charter reform, which was voted on by the people in June. Let me just try to answer a few questions as to what this ordinance does and does not do. Under the charter, you have three key requirements, Mr. President. The charter requires that we set up a Department of Neighborhoods and a commission within 120 days of the passage of the charter. That is what we have before you today. The charter then gives that Department of Neighborhoods, after it's set up, 1 year to come up with a plan for neighborhood councils for the city. And then it gives the council 6 months after that to approve or change that plan, so long as it meets the certain charter mandated requirements. This is the first step. This is, instead of waiting the 120 days, we have come forward at an earliest possible moment with the ordinance which will create the Department of Neighborhoods and will mandate the appointment of a 7-person charter commission which reflects the true diversity of this city. They will then take all of the questions that have been raised by the people who are here today and the many questions that people have throughout all the neighborhoods as to how these will work, what effect they will have on existing organizations, etc. And that's what will happen through a mandated year-long public process in which the department is mandated in this ordinance to go to the communities throughout this city for input and come up with the neighborhood council plan. The real debate will come a year from now when they present that plan to the city council. The only thing that they must do, Mr. President, is in coming up with the plan, they must meet certain charter mandated requirements. The neighborhood councils have to be open to everyone who lives or works or is a stakeholder in the community. It has to assure that the neighborhood councils represent the broad, diverse interests of the people in the community. It has to guarantee that it will communicate on a regular basis with all the stakeholders in the community. It has to guarantee that all the meetings are open and public, and it has to come up with an early notification ordinance which will require that before the city can act on any number of important issues, it must give the neighborhood councils an opportunity to discuss them and weigh in on them. That's what this will do, and they will bring back to you in a year from now the plan that implements that, and we will have more than ample opportunity to discuss it at that time. When I say this is the first step, Mr. President, it's because in reality, the real test will come a year from now as to whether or not we approve in the form in which we improve the neighborhood council system, and whether we give it the resources, the staffing, to hire community organizers, to have places for people to meet, to communicate with the people in the community, to make them work. But that isn't before us today. Today is your commitment that you will honor the charter that this people of this city passed and move forward in direction with their mandate to create a department in neighborhoods and empower it and give it the requirement to come up with a neighborhood council plan a year from now. This is a step that this city is duty-bound to take, and one in which the people of this city have mandated to us, and rightfully so, and I look forward to the process. It's over in terms of referring it to we don't need to refer this to committee. What we need to do is have that committee that you're going to appoint, Mr. President, work diligently over the next year with the Department of Neighborhoods to come up with the plan.
Mrs. Chick.
Yes, I think my colleague and the chair of Government Efficiency Committee that's been working so hard on this for well over a year, I think, has very well made the case for moving ahead today, colleagues. And I also think that it is of great importance to show the will and perseverance of this council to translate the will of the voters in having passed charter reform. Having been not only one of the members of Government Efficiency Committee, but one of the initiators through council motion of the formation of a Department of Neighborhoods, I rise in support of going forward with the committee recommendations and the ordinance as it was crafted in committee and as it stands before you. There have been some who have expressed concern about the definition of the Department of Neighborhoods playing a role in facilitating the delivery of city services, and I would like to direct my comments to that. I advocated very strongly to include that language during our process of crafting the ordinance because I sat in on meetings in both the City of Seattle and the City of Baltimore and watched how their version of the Department of Neighborhoods worked so effectively. We are forming neighborhood councils. We are increasing the empowerment of our community members to have a voice, to express what their concerns and needs and problems are. If we do not then, in conjunction with that, empower the Department of Neighborhoods and its staff to play a facilitating role in bringing solutions to those problems, then what we are going to do is to create an exercise of increased frustration on the part of our residents. The term facilitate, according to the dictionary definition, is as follows: to render easier, to promote, to help forward, to lessen the labor of, and also to provide the opportunity for the easier performance of anything, the easiness of access. It is not in the language before you that it gives the responsibility of delivering services to the Department of Neighborhoods. It is not before you that it takes away the important role of the council offices in delivering services to our neighborhoods. All this does is to give a role to the Department of Neighborhoods to work with our other service delivering departments to make sure that their attention is drawn to the problems, to help coordinate different departments in problem solving, and to help create what we've often heard our mayor and
All
our
right.
chief of police discuss in community-based government.
thank you
I
very
urge
much.
that we proceed today.
All right.
Thank
Ms.
you.
Goldberg.
Yes, I have a couple of specific questions, and then I have a couple of specific statements. I think that this whole chapter should be developed primarily focused around the general manager and the commissioners, because as you said, that's what's going to happen after that is what happens after that. I understand that the mayor chooses everyone, so it's not that I'm trying to have any impact on that. But I do think that since we're talking about a Department of Neighborhood Empowerment, that it would probably be useful to put in a panel of community organizers as a screening group, or as a group that might want to screen who would be the general manager, or at least make recommendations to the mayor, because this is not a typical function. And it might even be useful to require that the person or the candidate who will be a general manager must have had some actual experience community organizing, as opposed to somebody who is interested in the notion but may not have had that personal experience. And likewise with commissioners, I think we ought to suggest that certain portion of them be renters, or there be income diversity as well as geographical diversity, or language diversity. Again, not to preclude that the mayor obviously has the right and the power to select whomever he or she will select, but I think that it's important to make those statements in setting up this department. We don't want it to become another bureaucracy. We want it to be headed by a general manager and by commissioners who are broadly representative of the city and who represent the diversity of the city, and who have in their common background some community organizing experience. And I think that this is things that I would hope we would add before we'd actually do it, because once it becomes a department, I don't think there's any chance of adding that back. You're just going to get an appointment of a general manager, an appointment of commissioners, and I think our job ought to be talking about those things. I think somewhere in here under the duties of department should be to mitigate the obstacles that keep people from participating, such as the lack of childcare, such as the lack of translation. I mean, I think we ought to spell out some of the things that we hope that they will have to take into account. Not tell them how to do it, but tell them what we expect them to do. In Article 2, Article 1, actually, you have O and E that seem to be contradictory. E says to help neighborhood councils meet together on a citywide basis and facilitate these meetings if and when requested to do so by neighborhood councils. O says facilitate meetings to be held at least semi-annual. So they're contradictory. Which is it? At least semi-annual, or only and if they decide that they want to do it? So there's an apparent contradiction between O and E. Under Article 2, 22.805B, the diversity of communities, interests, neighbors, ethnicity, race, gender, age, sexual orientation, I would add income. I would add renter versus homeowner. I don't know about your districts, but in my district, those are important questions of participation.
Okay, thank you.
Well,
Mr. Fuhr.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to offer some specific amendments on particular sections. First, but before I do, I want to say I think we all owe Mr. Wax and his colleagues, Mr. Ridley Thomas and Ms. Chick, a real debt of gratitude for moving this forward as rapidly and as thoughtfully as has happened so far. And we all recognize how significant this is. Perhaps for many, the heart of charter reform was connecting residents throughout the city to their government. And this ordinance is the first explicit statement by this council of how we intend to make that work. Having said that, I want to address an array of things. First, the certification of the neighborhood councils and what they need to do. I think that some of the themes that have been touched on already in comments by colleagues need to be memorialized here. First, I think that we ought to make sure that the councils are required to make a good faith effort to have stakeholders from, and then we should delineate what those communities are. residential and residential community, commercial communities. There should be, in residential, I agree with Ms. Goldberg, tenants and homeowners. There should be property owners and merchants, representatives from schools, religious institutions, social services providers, and I can provide a list to the clerk of these elements that ought to be required of neighborhood councils, and we ought to spell it out, I think, in words, by example, the kinds of stakeholder diversity that we need. We ought to specify that before a neighborhood council can be certified, they are going to tell us that they're going to meet with regularity, at least quarterly, it seems to me. And there needs to be a method of broad notice for those meetings. The bylaws need to say that, because we know there are community groups that exist now where there are no elections, where the group may or may not meet, it may or may not meet in public. That's important, I think, to be community groups that are actually called upon to meet. We ought to say that the officers of these neighborhood councils ought to reflect some stakeholder diversity as well, because the officers of most organizations go a long way towards setting the agenda for that group. I think that's important. Further, I want to talk about the composition of the board of this newly created commission. I agree with Ms. Goldberg that there ought to be some expansion on the term communities of interest, or perhaps substitution for maybe stakeholder interest, and then delineate residential interests, commercial interests, nonprofit interests, and others. I want to also discuss the point that Ms. Chick made regarding efficient delivery of services. We all, I think, recognize that neighborhood councils in part will be created to help get quality of life changes in their neighborhoods. That's what ours have done. And let me just say, Mr. President, as I conclude here, that it's important for us to, on the one hand, provide a means in the department to communicate those concerns by residents, but while not, on the other hand, confusing lines of accountability, especially when it comes to resource allocation, since in all our districts we have people who say, I want mine first.
Thank you.
The council district may say, well, that's appropriate or may not. What happens when the neighborhood council says one thing, the council office says another, the department says something else? Would it be finding some means of language here that coordinates those responsibilities?
Ms. Galanter.
Well, we're going to create a Department of Neighborhoods. The charter requires it, and although personally I have a lot of problem with the concept of how a centrally managed participation effort is true community participation, I am of course going to join my colleagues in voting to create a department that we hope is going to do that. But I do want to raise a couple of hesitations, not about the efforts that the committee has made so far, but I think that we're at a point in the development of implementation of the charter where we need to recognize that there are a lot of people throughout the city who voted for this, well, some of them voted for it, who are anxious to participate in this development, and many of them, I'm sure, came to the committee during the committee hearings. But as I'm talking with people in my district, I'm getting a lot of people saying, when are we going to have a chance to be a part of this process, and what are you, the council, going to do about it? And it seems to me that now that we've started this, our goal should be to encourage the widest possible participation in the development of every aspect of it. And that is what I had understood was to be the purpose of establishing an ad hoc committee on charter implementation, which I hope the President is going to do. There are so many issues relating to neighborhood councils that also relate to other issues that we have to implement that came out of the charter. For example, there's the question I get most frequently when I talk to people in the district is, well, how many neighborhoods will there be and how many councils will there be? And during the campaign, the answer to that was it will be up to the neighborhoods. And this department that we're going to create will help you make those decisions and arrive at the proper conclusion. At the same time, the council is going to have to make a determination as to how many area planning commissions we will have. And people ask me that question too, how many planning commissions are we going to have? Well, we don't know yet. But it seems to me that part of what people want in neighborhood councils is the opportunity to discuss planning issues. It would be helpful, it seems to me, for the same people who have that concern to be able to come before a committee of the council and ultimately the full council and say, this is how we see these systems blending. Not all of that range of issues has been before the Government Efficiency Committee, and so it does seem to me it would make sense as quickly as possible to have a new ad hoc committee on charter implementation to take this committee's report. Some of the testimony we received today, I was briefed about ahead of time. Some of it I saw just in this hearing, and I think the comments from the Neighborhood Participation Project raised some very interesting issues, and I'm delighted they were here. I didn't know they existed. Okay, so I'll stop.
Ms. Sikowski.
Members of the council, I think we have before us today a well-crafted ordinance, and I think it's time to get started. I don't think we need to delay it. I think there were a lot of legitimate concerns and issues that were raised, all of which can be addressed in the regulations that will be set up and in the process that this does create. I think that's what we're doing here. We're starting the process. For those who are concerned about other, and I think some of the testimony did raise some legitimate issues about what about the existing nonprofits, the existing groups, are they going to be forced out by way of a community council? And nothing could be further from the truth. This is going to be just further allowing and engaging more members of the public. For those of us who have community councils or community council-like structures, in no way does it negate a chamber of commerce or a residents association, all of whom participate through a community council, but each have their own mandate. Sometimes there's conflict that is resolved in front of the community council. Sometimes there's not, and those existing organizations continue to thrive, continue to have their own membership because they are sole focus. I think the issue that Ms. Goldberg raised about it's appropriate now as we are choosing a general manager to have input and advice, I think we should ask the personnel department, who normally when they choose a general manager pick people both from an academic background and a community background who have some experience in the recommendation of who should be among the people that we are selecting, and through the interview process, do they have community organizing groups on their selection process right now? They are forming that task force and going through their normal process. We should have verification that that's occurring. I think there are a lot of legitimate issues. I appreciate what Ms. Chick indicated, because as I read the language between what's in the ordinance about facilitating the delivery of services and an alternate variation offered by the mayor about facilitating communications, that addressed one of the concerns. We don't want to create a super agency. For instance, if a constituent in any one of our districts wants to have a pothole fixed, they should go to the Department of Street Services. That's where they should go, and we should make sure that they know that that's where they should go. They shouldn't go to the Department of Neighborhoods, and I think there was a concern that this language said that the Department of Neighborhoods will be the super agency. This, in terms of facilitating the communication, facilitating information so people know where to go, how to go, and where it's not working, where and how the neighborhood department and general manager can help influence and input, that is useful. But it's not meant to be a new super agency. We are all it's meant to be is, and that's why I generally preferred the language of facilitate communications, because it basically is going to facilitate how the city works, where it works best, and so I was generally more comfortable with that. But as Ms. Chick explained the term facilitate, I realized that what we're really talking about in an ordinance is semantic difference. And the real issues are all going to be ironed out when the commission is formed, when the general manager is selected, when the public hearings occur, and when the real regulations meant to be inclusive, meant to be facilitating, meant to be all-encompassing are really set forward. But there's no reason to delay. Let's get started, do it now. We've got a whole lot more work, us with the creation of the department, us with the citizens in the community, us with all the various organizations, and there's going to be an incredible variety of ideas, resources, and opportunities. I also am not fearful of the meeting annually. We have another model that works very closely like that, our community police advisory boards, which are in each community division, police division in our city. Each work differently, independently, and well with their department, but they all value that once a year coming together as community police advisory boards, and they exchange information, and it's been valuable and worthwhile, and I think this is what the model is.
Look at your monitor, members of the council, and it tells you when your time is up. Mrs. Walters.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm pleased that Ms. Chick explained her language that was added here to the purposes. The mayor, I think, in this instance, has raised some valid concerns as to whether or not this language will enable community councils or the board of the community councils to direct department managers, general managers, or interfere somehow with the city departments who are responsible for the delivery of services from being delivered. One of the things that I found a question about was the block clubs. In my district, we have a large number of block clubs. Do they cease to exist, or do we have to form another council to interface with this council, or in their present organization, can they interface with this council? I think that's one of the questions that needs to be answered. And if we create another neighborhood council outside of or in addition to the block clubs, then does that mean that block clubs must report to the community, to the neighborhood council, who then reports to this neighborhood commission citywide? I think those are questions that need to be clarified, and I would have hoped that they were in the ordinance. So, because so many times after we pass an ordinance, questions come up about it, and the city attorney goes back to the ordinance seeking authority for whatever decision is made. And so I think that there should be something that clarifies the relationship of existing block clubs, neighborhood watch groups, community councils, so that there is no feeling on the part of people in the community that they're being abolished, unless they choose to be abolished. The other question, or the other concern that I have, and I think it should be included here so it would be crystal clear, under section 22.805, Board of Neighborhood Commissioners, item C there says the board members shall be appointed, may be removed, and vacancies filled in accordance with the provisions of the city charter. The provisions of the charter provide for those appointees, those people to be appointed by the mayor, and I think it should so state here, without people having to go find a city charter and find out who is the appointing authority of those boards. And I think any place else where that is not clear, where references are made to the city charter. Thank you, Mr. President. I've exceeded my time, but I just wanted to say that it should be clear in the ordinance without people having to go looking for a charter to determine the answers to their questions.
Mr. Ridley Thomas.
Mr. President and members of the council, I think we should view this as a momentous occasion for us to move forward. The work of this council over the past several years now, if one were to look at the council file, you will see the names of practically all of us on a variety of motions that have intended to bring us to this very day. I think it is the case that the City Council has chosen to figure out a way for better citizen participation to take root in the city of Los Angeles. We already have examples of that. We have examples in CD 5, we have examples in CD 3, we have examples in CD 1, we have examples throughout the city of ways in which neighbors are trying to make their feelings, their wishes, their hopes and desires known with respect to the quality of life. Ms. Walters raises an important question that I wish to speak to as quickly as I can. If, in fact, the neighborhood councils that we are talking about implementing by way of ordinance and the like, if they don't take into consideration very early on, including block clubs and the way in which they are formatted and the way in which they have contributed to the quality of life of their respective neighborhoods, it is a mistake. And there's nothing that is being proposed here that precludes their participation. There's nothing that diminishes their autonomy. There's nothing that seeks to redefine those entities. And if such were the case, I think it would not be a good thing. Same is the case with homeowners associations, et cetera, et cetera. So there are existing entities within the structure that have to be respected. That is in part the strength and the success of the proposal that is before you. I wish to say that because I learned that, you might say, the hard way. And having experimented with this in terms of the Empowerment Congress, I know that these block clubs, homeowners association, and Mr. Hernandez would mash the whole structure. You have to take that which is there and enhance the value that is brought by those existing entities. What I know is the following. When you organize communities, when you cause them to take advantage of the resources that a council office can bring to bear, as well as the other city departments, they are significantly benefited. And, Mr. President, I simply wish to say the work is before us, and I wish to support it wholeheartedly. The committee report is important, and thank you for your opportunity.
Obviously, you support it. Mr. Hernandez.
Thank you. Obviously, I support it.
Yeah.
And we appeal to you the same, sir.
Mr. President, members of the council, before I make my comments, I want to start by asking that we amend the ordinance before us to basically strike provision 22801, item K. And I think that's been an area of major controversy and discussion. And I want people to understand the spirit of the amendment is one that I honestly believe that still needs to be defined, and I don't want to change the direction of empowering communities and giving them the latitude in which to do that. So that's my amendment to start. Yeah, out of the ordinance right now. And again, that can come back to us, I think, at a later time. Exactly. Well, it's 22801, item K. And just keep it open right now is what I'm suggesting. Members of the council, I have a major concern because it's no secret that, there's already people vying to be the department head of this particular department. There's no secret that there's been a lot of politics going on as to its formation. And I honestly believe that whatever our principles may be, they tend to be corrupted by our politics. And when I say that, from my perspective, what I'm looking for in neighborhood councils and what I've experienced in trying to empower the communities I represent is a tremendous amount of dialogue that goes on at the very local level. And how it is that those guidelines are established is extremely important because people have to feel they're stakeholders at that level. Now, I represent communities where I've seen basically an evolution of competition that basically is very positive for that community, but it's very stressful. And in saying that, I want to make sure that that is allowed to happen in this process and that whatever emerges is representative of those communities. You see, when I talk to the people of what used to be Pico Heights, the reality is the leadership is based on the church leadership because you have Loyola, you have St. Thomas, you have St. Sophia's, and they're concerned about what they call a lot of the people that are there who basically are there participating in business without the proper licenses. When I'm dealing in Chinatown, you have questions of generations of stakeholders who basically are there as first-time immigrants, and they're dealing with their descendants who basically choose not to live in Chinatown but want to be the developers of Chinatown. I think that there has to be a tremendous amount of dialogue, and item 2801K should be a basis of that dialogue. My primary concerns is that we empower those people who should have a voice, and we give them the ability to participate in municipal government.
All right.
And that's the principle I'd like to guide us in this process.
Thank you. Mr. Savornich.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the council. I know today is the first step, and I think it's a step in the correct direction, but one of the things I would like to make sure that everyone is reminded of today as we start this process. And I know this process will take more shape as we start to amend the administrative code and the other provisions within the law will actually set this in place. I had a very nice conversation with one of the charter commissioners in my office this morning in regards to some of my concerns in regards to what the size and the scope of different neighborhood councils will be across this city. And I think where we will make the most difference in this city is empowering those portions of the city in those neighborhoods which historically have not felt that they have been part of the city government and have been historically disenfranchised. And what my concern is, Mr. President, members of the council, is that as we start to make this come to be, that in those areas of the city where folks just have enough time in a day to go to work and to support themselves and their family and don't have a lot of extracurricular activities on their plate because of finding themselves on a lower socioeconomic status than others in this city, is that we will have a plethora of neighborhood councils in the more affluent areas of the city, and in the less affluent areas of the city we will have less. And I would hope that as we start to go ahead and put the safeguards, either by ordinance or in the administrative code, that that is addressed, and I believe that they will be. But I think we have to be very, very careful in that in communities that have historically been the have communities in the city of Los Angeles versus the communities that historically have been the have not communities in the city of Los Angeles, there is a proportional equal representation in regards to neighborhood councils versus neighborhood councils in the more affluent areas being abundant and those in the less affluent areas being not abundant. And I think that's something that we have to be careful of. That's something that we have to make sure does not happen. The reason being, Mr. President, members, is that as I read the ordinance, these neighborhood councils are going to be self-starting. And from the outset, self-starting neighborhood councils have a preponderance to be those in areas that have the time or the education or the ability to be self-starting versus those areas that don't. So while I think that we should support this, and I'm willing to either send this to committee or approve it today, I'm very open to whatever the majority of the will of the council is. I think we have to be very careful that the process that we begin is indeed what we want to accomplish at the end of the day.
Thank you. Mr. Holden.
The last statement, that the process begin to accomplish what we wanted to have at the end of the day. And that's what we're doing. We're starting the process. I think that Mr. Burnson, who's had an opportunity to look at more neighborhood councils, more neighborhood watch groups than any other member of the city council, by his sitting on the planning committee for, I guess, 12 years or more, and even prior there too, you've seen and heard more discussion from individual and organizations who care about their community and wanted to fix the problem that we were about to put upon them. Mr. Burnson has asked us to do one thing. That is, give this an overall review so we can accomplish what we want to accomplish at the end of the day. The Empowerment Council is a good idea. Each of these organizations are going to have growing pains and problems from the offset. It seems to me, at least, that you want to be able to diffuse those problems to the best that we can before we get too far down the road. Mr. Furrow had an amendment. Mr. Hernandez has got an amendment. Ms. Goldberg talked about an amendment. Ms. Walters talked about an amendment. We cannot design this legislation and this full body. I just have to refer to what they do in Sacramento from time to time. That once you begin to amend on the floor, it doesn't look the same. And what they usually do is refer it back to committee, where you have a consolidated piece of legislation, and then you present it to the members intact. I just think that it's kind of a Mickey Mouse way to go. I know we're eagerly to get started, But in all respect to, due respect to Mr. Burnson, who in my view has more knowledge and more experience about dealing with neighborhoods, and nobody can deny that we should at least, in my view, wait until he returns. He's on city business at AQMD. He really wanted to be here, but he was appointed to that commission by the mayor, and he couldn't be here today. So what he said, hey, I would like to see this go back to the special committee and iron out all these problems. Each idea that you have, you can put before that committee, ad hoc committee, and they can resolve the problem. And then it'll come out with some consolidated measure. But if you can't do that, at least to wait until he returns as a courtesy to hear what Mr. Burnson has to say on the issue. So I'm not going to make a motion right now, but I'm just throwing that on the table.
Thank you. Mr. Pacheco.
I heard, Mr. President and fellow council members, I heard Councilmember Savornich mention the haves and the have-nots. I will represent to you that in terms of the 14th council district, which does have different incomes, I have been presented by a constituent a plan, a proposal for neighborhood councils out of the 14th council district. So this is a process that, at least in my district, the community is embracing and looking forward to. I recommend that what's on the floor right now, as I understand, I do support Mr. Hernandez's amendment, and I do support passage of the overall ordinance today. Thank you.
Ms. Goldberg.
Yes, I'd like to move the following amendments. To Article 1, Section 22801, add letter P, and add the following: mitigate obstacles to widespread community participation, including but not limited to childcare, language translation, transportation to and from meetings, and disability access. To Section 22803, I'd like to move to amend by the following language: the mayor shall appoint a screening panel of a minimum of 5 members, all of whom have had and continue to have experience as community organizers, to recommend at least 5 candidates to the mayor. To 22805B, I'd like to add to the existing language, quote, income, primary language, residential status, open parens, renters, homeowners, close parens. And to 22.805, letter D, board members shall have community organizing experience. On 22.809F, like to ask a question, which is why we would permit a neighborhood council to hold a hearing that is not held in the district, it's E, excuse me. Neighborhood council meetings are not required to be held within the boundaries of the area represented by the neighborhood council. I think that when you start doing that, you're going to make it far away and impossible for those who are limited with transportation problems to get to and from them. So I'd like to know more about that, and I'd still like to have someone explain the problems with E versus O in 22.801. But I would hope to get a second on the 1, 2, 4 motions that I've made.
City Attorney, take the center table. All right, Mrs. Chick, there's a lot of changes that seem to be in this ordinance.
Was there a second to the motion, Goldberg?
Would we please let the city attorney know, lobbying the city attorney, please?
I hope my time hasn't...
We want her to be fair.
Mr. President, you're not running the clock on me, are you, since you're being so diligent on the 3 minutes?
Yeah.
Are we going to hear from the city attorney, and then I'll speak when...
Yeah, let's
Fine.
hear from them, and I'll give you your full 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you.
Do you want to make any comments on some of the remarks that have been made so far?
President and members of the council, there have been a number of amendments, some of which we may be called to speak to those proposals. We'd like to just speak briefly to the issue of the appointment and removal of the general manager.
under Article 9, Department of Neighborhood Empowerment. The implementation provisions of the charter provide that the Article 9, Department of Neighborhood Empowerment, shall become effective immediately and does not have the one-year date, which is why we're considering the ordinance at this time. And in fact, under Section 903, the general manager shall be appointed and may be removed pursuant to the provisions of the new charter, including Section 508 of the charter. And Section 508 of the charter provides that the appointment of the general manager shall be by the mayor with the confirmation by the council. The language is fairly simple, and it provides under the appointment that the chief administrative officer, in this case for the Department of Neighborhood Empowerment, shall be appointed by the mayor subject to confirmation of the council. If the council does not approve the appointment within 45 days after its submission to the council, the appointment shall be deemed approved. The mayor may, but shall not be required to, use the assistance of the personnel department in the recruitment and selection of candidates for appointment. For the purposes of this ordinance and this department, the new provisions of the charter apply under the implementation provisions of the charter, but not for any other department, just for this department. And it was important to clarify that point from the city attorney's office, given the breadth of amendments you may be considering today.
And there are only two other, Claudia Culling, City Attorney's Office, there's only two other issues that I'd like to bring up in response to some of the comments that are made. And that is, number one, the idea of this ordinance is that the board will go away and come up with a plan in a year. And in that plan will be a lot of the details that have been discussed by the council members. That will then come back to the council, and the council will have an opportunity to look at those regulations in terms of whether they should be the ordinances or not, and they can make changes to them. They have only 6 months to act, however, and if you don't, they become law without your action, but that the council has the opportunity then to see all the details of the plan. That's number one. And the second item is a point that Councilwoman Goldberg brought up about the meetings not being held within the neighborhood. There's an actual Brown Act reason that we added that language. We actually recommended that to the committee. The reason is that the Brown Act says that unless you say otherwise, any legislative body must have its meetings only within the boundary of its jurisdiction, its area of jurisdiction. And here, because these neighborhood groups may have interests that are all sorts of places, they may be in a bigger, there may be some development that's outside of their little neighborhood that will impact them, and they want to have a meeting with other area groups, other neighborhood councils, and they may want to be in a central location. They may want to come down here and meet with the city council or meet with the department, and they will be prohibited from doing that unless we say something along these lines in the ordinance. So it wasn't to encourage, secret meetings far away that would be hard to get to. No, it does look odd, and I wanted to explain what the rationale is.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, Mrs. Chick, I'll start your 3 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, a couple of points. First of all, the devil is in the details, and your three colleagues who have been working on this for over 2 years in committee very much grappled with that reality. It is exactly why we've heard from the city attorney, from the chair of the committee, there will continue to be fleshing out of rules and regulations as this proceeds forward. There is simply no way to, in finite detail, put in all of the possibilities in this originating ordinance. Second of all, the name of this department is the Department of Neighborhood Empowerment, and we must empower the department in order to empower neighborhood councils. I go back to the discussion on the language about giving the department the ability to facilitate per the dictionary definition that I read to you. Nowhere in this language does it give this department the responsibility to deliver city services. And in the language K, which Council members Hernandez and Pacheco are moving to delete, it actually goes into further detail and says, by coordinating and involving the relevant city staff in integrated problem solving with neighborhood councils, a very key part of what neighborhood councils are going to be all about. First, they're going to identify what their needs and problems are, and then they're going to have Department of Neighborhood staff working with departments, working with council offices, working with the mayor, help to bring the resources needed to address those problems. I would like to ask the city attorney, if we delete Section K from the duties, as my colleague is recommending, what does that do to the responsibilities of the department? Does it still allow us to hold the general manager responsible for helping to resolve problems?
I'm not sure I understand your question.
If we
Councilwoman.
delete K as a specific
Right.
duty, but leave in purposes the language, and my recommendation, if we do that, would be at the end of 22.800, the paragraph purposes, to then add, by coordinating and involving the relevant city staff in integrated problem solving with the neighborhood councils, because that part is not in the purposes. It is in K. If we leave it in purposes and take K out, does it still give the ability and the direction to the department that they are to play a role in helping to resolve problems by working with city departments to?
Yes.
It does. Then I would support Mr. Hernandez's
Thank you.
amendment with the addition of those words that I
Thank you.
just read. Is that acceptable?
Mr. Wax.
Mr. President, members of council, let me try. This has been a really good discussion, and it parallels the discussions we've had for years in the committee. Let me try to address a few of the questions that have been raised. Mr. Fuhrer, Ms. Goldberg, and Mr. Hernandez in particular, one of the issues raised was openness and diversity. And I just want to recite to you 3 places in this ordinance where our committee went overboard to try to open up the system. In the 3 places I'd like to refer to you, in the composition of the board, the charter simply required that it have geographic diversity. Ms. Goldberg, we added in addition to geographic diversity, diversity of communities of interest, which is as broad as you could possibly be. We tried not to limit a definition of what communities of interest are. We tried to expand it. Diversity of communities of interest, neighborhoods, ethnicity, race, gender, age, and sexual orientation. I don't think that there is a community of interest that you could find that isn't included within those. Mr. Fuhrer, in terms of the neighborhood councils, the charter only required that the neighborhood council membership be open to people who live, work, and own property there. Live, of course, includes renters as well as homeowners. We added in and all other people who identify themselves as stakeholders by virtue of their participation in things like educational institutions, religious institutions, community organizations like block clubs, and nonprofit organizations. And third, Mr. Hernandez, we took out the word citizenship and put in the word public participation so that it would be open to everyone who lives in this city and who works here, irrespective of whether their status is from that standpoint. We made this as open as possible, and it is the first step in this city to open it up in that way. Secondly, as to the kind of public participation in the process, Mr. Fuhrer, 22809 mandates that the Department of Neighborhoods, in fact, engage the public in the year-long process of coming up with the plan. As to the existing organizations versus neighborhood councils, which will be answered in that year, the thing is not to keep the city in the status quo. If what we had today was enough, people wouldn't want more. It is to take what we have today, build upon it, integrate it all into a coordinated effort so that all of the voices, whether they're now articulated or whether they haven't been, can come together and be part of a greater sense of participation. That's what this is about. I strongly urge you not to send this to committee today. The committee that Mr. Ferraro was rightfully setting up will be the committee that over the next 18 months will deal with the department as the plan develops and as it sends it here. But if you try now to answer everything that they're going to do in the next 18 months, you're never going to get it done in the 60 days you have left. It's going to take 30 days just to set up a department if an ordinance doesn't get a unanimous vote. So you've got to do this today and leave the system operate as it's intended. If we are people of goodwill, If we are people who truly want to open the system up, we will work cooperatively to do that. If we want to stonewall it and don't, then we will send it off to committee over and over and over again.
Thank you, Mr. Wax. It's not 18 months, it's the charters have to be enforced by July 1st.
These particular provisions.
Yeah, okay. Mr. Fuhr.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to talk about our procedure and then about some substantive amendments. First, procedurally, I too oppose sending this to committee. I think that to send it to committee will mire it there for a while, and I also think that there is certainly enough before us that could lead us to go in one of two directions, either of which I could support procedurally. Either we vote on it today, and I have some amendments to offer if we choose to move forward. I'd like to have those amendments voted on today. Or, given Mr. Holden's comments and Mr. President Ferraro's comments regarding Mr. Bernson's absence today, the most I would support is continuing the matter to Tuesday, allowing Mr. Bernson to participate, allowing written amendments to be presented on that day, and then have a vote on that day. In fact, procedurally, I will actually move that that's the method that we proceed upon to assure that we can have all of us participate, but also to assure that this not get buried in committee, but actually be voted on in a timely way. And I hope that the chair of the committee and others will support that approach. Now, with respect to the substance, should we choose instead to act on the entirety of the ordinance this morning, I'd like to offer amendments to Section 22.811. That, recall, colleagues, is the section that describes how a neighborhood council becomes certified. I would like to add items 7 through 10 to the 6 that are already delineated there. The 7th item I'd like to add would say that at least one neighborhood council meeting shall be held each quarter, and the method for broad notice of such meetings. What that means is that the neighborhood council would have to say, we're going to meet at least quarterly, and here is how we're going to notice the meetings. And item 8, again, regarding the diversity of the composition of neighborhood councils, I'd like to add an amendment that is more specific, Joel, than the permissive language that is already included in the ordinance that says that a good faith effort has been made to assure that neighborhood council membership is comprised of at least one representative from each of the following, if the category represented is a stakeholder in the bounds of the neighborhood council: residential property owner, commercial property owner, residential tenant, business owner, school, religious institution, social service provider, library, police, fire department, or park. Other similar categories should also be represented if they are stakeholders in the neighborhood council area. To those items, I'd like to add item 9, that would require that there be at least 3 officers of a neighborhood council who represent at least 3 of the categories I just mentioned, so that the officers reflect the diversity of stakeholder interest in the area, to be sure that we had a consensus that's built in a neighborhood rather than one perspective guiding the way. And lastly, I think that we should have a 10th item that requires that there be an annual submission of the membership lists of the council to the Department of Neighborhoods to assure that as an ongoing matter, there is diversity of stakeholder interest and resident participation in the workings of the council.
Mr. Ridley Thomas.
Mr. President, members of the council, I would wish to ask the city attorney a question as to the nature of the amendments that are being offered, if in fact they can't be properly and or appropriately accommodated in the work that is to follow in the additional task to refine operationalizing the Department of Neighborhoods. And if such is the case, if you would give us some indication of what that process looks like, it would be helpful.
Claudia Culling again. Most of the comments that have been made involve how neighborhood councils would be certified and how they would operate and what kinds of criteria need to be used to determine how they'll, whether they'll be certified and how they'll operate. And that can all be done by the department as a part of the plan.
All right.
The notices and the meetings,
yes.
Those are things, they'll be Brown, once these
yes.
groups are certified, they'll be Brown Act legislative bodies. They
right.
have to have regular meetings.
Right.
They have to have notice, open meetings with notice.
Yes. Mr. President, members of the council, I just simply want to indicate that the range of amendments that are being proposed don't have to be exhaustive, nor should they be considered conclusive at this juncture, because we will have future opportunities to refine this. I think what ought to be appreciated, once again, is that we have essentially produced, with additional input that has already been received, an ordinance that is broad. That is to say, it takes into consideration a range of issues involving the empowerment of the respective communities throughout the city. It is, at the same time, inclusive with respect to a range of constituencies that help to make up this city and cause its diversity to be as rich and as productive as it is. And finally, I think it is clear. My own view is that the clearer, the more simple the process is, the better a chance we have for it succeeding. An additional feature that I think is useful is the flexibility that defines neighborhood councils. We have made a big point of this. The neighborhood councils throughout the city ought to have some degree of uniformity, but they also should respect the diversity of our city in terms of the way in which those groups operate. Therefore, it must be flexible. The more specificity at this point in terms of the ordinance, the less opportunity we have for the flexibility that I think will ensure its success. So I would simply appeal to all of us to recognize that what we've accomplished is something quite considerable. It is perhaps the most extensive example of participatory democracy that any urban city will be able to identify, and we should, in fact, move forward today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Hernandez.
You know, members of the council, and again, I don't want to confuse the issue. I'm not standing here to oppose what's before us. I want to reaffirm some of the words said by Mr. Ridley Thomas. And maybe it's just my own personal mistrust when I stand here and I look at the composition of this council, and I look at the composition of the decision makers of the city, and I have a clear understanding how they got there. And I understand the mayor's appointees. And the other day I was commenting that when we talk about planning issues in the city of Los Angeles, I'm sure councils District 5 and 11 worry about it, because out of 5 commissioners, 4 of them come from those 2 council districts. And it's not like they're going to be reflecting the needs of the people in my district. But those are all appointments made by the mayor. I've made comments of how it is that the mayor seems to be able to find people outside of the city to serve on governing decisions. And we talk about empowering neighborhoods in the city of Los Angeles. We just can't find people in those neighborhoods to basically make decisions for the city. And so I have a certain amount of distrust into processes, because those processes had to be challenged by organizations that were representative of communities that did not have representation to create the council district I represent. And then I had to deal with the issues of the fact that the city had a history of not providing services in those council districts. Now, I'm trying to explain it because I think this concept is something that we need to support. But it has to be done in a way to empower the reality of Los Angeles. And that's why I have a lot of suspicions when things are predetermined. And so when I saw this ordinance, there was a lot of predetermined assumptions. And that's part of my concern, because I want the communities to deal with those kinds of issues. Now, I'm making these statements because that's what I basically think I have to make sure happens in regards to this ordinance, and that's what I'm going to be working with. And I have faith and confidence you all believe the same thing. I do. But my amendment was basically meant to allow for that process of the duties and responsibilities in regards to city services to reach down to the neighborhoods in that decision making. And hopefully the plan that they come up with will tell us how to get the departments to be more accountable to them.
Ms. Galanter.
First of all, I'd like to say that this being a democracy, I think we're still allowed to disagree without having to be called names for having done so. Having said that, I would like to ask a couple of questions that have occurred to me listening to this conversation today, and then I will also support Mr. Fewer's motion. I think you made a motion, because I would also welcome the opportunity to read all of the amendments that have been offered today before taking a final vote on this. First of all, I'm inclined to agree with Mr. Ridley Thomas's statement that flexibility is required here, and Mr. Wax gave an excellent example of the committee's effort to leave a fair range of diversities to be considered. But let me ask, I have 3 specific questions here. I want to come back to what Ms. Culling said about the Brown Act in a minute. But first, as I listen to the list of types of people who could be involved in this, who these days it is fashionable to describe as stakeholders, it leads me to question whether somebody could be active in more than one council. You could, okay. So somebody who lives one place could be active there, and also they have a business somewhere else that could be active there, and they have, you listed a whole bunch of others, I forget what the others were. So somebody who's got the time to do it could in fact be an active participant in more than one council. Okay. The related question is, I confess to a bias against the word stakeholder, which nobody used 5 years ago, and which to me is either a hibachi or a dead vampire. But skipping that, so I always have a lot of trouble with it. Mine. You got it? Good, I'm glad. But the, you know, I'm trying to respect the fact that lots of other people like this word. So the question that I then would have, and I would welcome the opportunity to have a couple of days to look through this ordinance and see if I can answer it myself, is what kind of stake do you have to have in order, that's exactly the problem, in order to be considered a stakeholder and therefore somehow be a category. And Michael mentioned civil service. That was not one that had occurred to me. So those are the kinds of things I'd welcome a couple of days to look through the amendments and look back through the ordinance and see how that comes up. On the Brown Act question, you recommended that there be a specific exception to the Brown Act requirement that an entity meet within the area of its jurisdiction in order, for example, to allow a community council or some of its members to come and meet with the city council in City Hall. Why can't they do that anyway? It doesn't have to be an official meeting of the neighborhood council if they choose to, or does it? If they say at council meeting on June 15th, they say on July 15th, we're going to have a meeting with our council member or the something or other committee, or we're all going to, anybody who wants to can go to the Government Efficiency Committee to make a statement. Do that. That doesn't have to be an official meeting, does it?
If the quorum of the committee or a quorum of the council is present and discussing matters that are under the jurisdiction of the council, which is a very broad jurisdiction, that will be a meeting. It needs to be noticed, and it will be subject to the Brown Act.
Okay. Thank you.
Ms. Miskowski.
Mr. President, I'm going to move a procedural matter, and that is that we move forward and adopt the ordinance today with the motion and the amendment that Mr. Hernandez had made, which, as I have talked to all 3 members of the Government Efficiency Committee, accepted. So that's generally an acceptable, almost a friendly amendment. And that all the other amendments, many of which, in terms of the detail they're talking about, I think are much more appropriate as regulatory procedure and not ordinance, be sent to the new committee that you're creating, the Ad Hoc Committee on Charter Reform, and be decided and discussed there, whether or not we need to later amend the ordinance, whether or not this be direction to the neighborhood council and general manager and or commissioners as they're created in terms of things that the council would like to instruct, but that be sent forward to that committee structure. But we move forward today. This is an all-embracing ordinance. It is something that wasn't hastily put together. For those of you who looked at the Government Efficiency Committee agendas way before the charter was even on the charter amendment, the Government Efficiency Committee has been struggling with this, attempting to be all-embracing, and I think, as Mr. Wax indicated, in its general language, it is meant to include a lot of the details and a lot of the specifics. So let's move forward on this today, not sweep away the other amendments, put them to the new committee, see whether or not, as I say, they're better put forward in a regulatory structure or later ordinance amendments. But let's show our commitment to do this, do it today. There's nothing negative here, and the more we can further enhance it down the line, that's all going to be the good for everybody that's going to be involved in the process.
Mr. Holden.
Ms. Miskowski, your friend and colleague, Mr. Bernstein, respectfully requested that at least he be here. Each of us from time to time in the past, and we will again in the future, ask that a matter be continued during our absence. It's not like he's on vacation. He's at AQMD at a meeting that he's designated to serve on. I just kind of think it would, we would perhaps live the regret that we deny his request today, and then one day at the circle, it comes to our time when we ask for a continuance on a matter. Let him make his argument why he will make his recommendation. And during the time period, Ms. Galanter said she'd like to review some of the proposed amendments to the ordinance. Already before you've adopted it, you have proposed amendments, 5, 6, 7, 8 of them. It would afford you an opportunity to at least have those drafted in amended form by Tuesday. You can discuss them, adopt and or reject. And it won't be done hastily, number one. And number two, you would have considered your colleague's request. And I would ask you to respectfully consider his request. He will be back here Tuesday. He's made the request. He's on city business, and it's not unreasonable. Ms. Koski, I move, along with Mr. Fuhrer, that we continue this matter, and at the same until he returns, and then we also have all the amendments to the ordinance drafted and put before us.
Okay. I wanted to ask, these amendments are to the ordinance? We can't do those ordinances. Can you write them up that quickly?
I can write up the friendly amendments because those I have. The other things that other speakers
But
have
it changes
brought
the
up.
ordinance, doesn't it? Could you have it done by Tuesday?
I could have it to you in about an hour.
Okay. Mr. Savornich. That's very unusual for the city attorney to do something in an hour.
Previous question, Mr. President.
Mr. President, does that include my suggested amendment, including the information in all parts of the appointing authority or wherever there are references to the charter to spell it out so people, community folks are going to be looking at this, so they don't have to go get a copy of the charter? I'd like to have that as an amendment that's to be considered.
Okay. Is there a second to that, Miss?
Can I just, excuse me, Claudia, can I just ask a question? You just wanted to say appointed by the mayor, confirmed by the city council pursuant to the charter. Would that be sufficient? Okay, we can add that as well.
Okay. Mrs. Goldberg.
Yeah, you know, I wonder what this hurry is. I mean, you've spent 2 years doing it. The people voted on giving us 4 months. Those of us who weren't on the committee would like to understand it more thoroughly. We're talking about a matter of days, not months. I mean, I don't get it. I don't get it. I do not understand that. It always makes the little hairs on the back of my neck feel very stand-up-ish when people say, we have to do this today, as if there's no tomorrow. And let me tell you another issue, which I think is important. I agree with you as to the flexibility and the time as to what the councils actually should look like. I don't, you know, I understand that. I don't have any problem with that. But how the commissioners get appointed and what requirements they are to have to be commissioners, and how the general manager is appointed and what requirements there are to be for that process, if we don't do those now, then they don't happen. They'll get appointed before there are any processes. Now, if you take a look at Article 5, Section 502 of the Charter, recently passed by a full 17% of the voters, it says, appointment under Section 502A, appointment and removal of commissioners, appointment unless otherwise provided in the Charter, commissioners of charter created boards and of standing commissions created by ordinance that are advisory to or manage a department or appointed office or perform regulatory functions shall be appointed by the mayor, subject to the approval of the council. And then it adds, the mayor shall appoint the commissions of all other ordinance-created commissions unless otherwise provided in the ordinance. This is an ordinance-created commission, is it not?
No,
It's not an ordinance-created commission?
no. This is a charter-created commission.
It's charter-created. Okay. All right. So you're saying that though we're creating it by ordinance, it's not created by ordinance?
This is an implementing ordinance rather than a creating
Okay.
ordinance.
All right. Well, that's an interesting clarification. I appreciate that. Well, then I'll return to the same 2 points that I have, which is that the other things that may not need to be done, but 22803 on the appointment of the general manager, I think we should add a screening panel, urge that the panel be people who have had experience as community organizers. It does us no good to create a charter-created ordinance of an organization unless you have people who are helping to deal with the issues of who's going to be on it. And I do think 22.805 should include a D, which says board members shall have community organizing experience. Unless we're interested in just making this a bureaucracy, you have to have people on that board who have themselves had experience in organizing in communities. I don't think that's a terrible burden to put on. There are thousands of them in the city of Los Angeles of all racial and ethnic persuasions, and I think that we should do that as a minimum. And I would urge that we wait at least until Tuesday, both on behalf of Mr. Burnson, but also on behalf of those of us who would like to make sure we've read all of this completely.
Mr. Wax.
I want to, members of the council, I really appeal to you to support Ms. Sikowski's procedure. Which accepts Mr. Hernandez's motion to eliminate K and goes forward today. The questions that Mr. Fuhrer, Ms. Goldberg, and others have raised, I am not opposed to most of what just from what I heard, opposed to most of them, but they are the beginning, Mr. Fuhrer, of an enormous number of similar questions that have to be answered in the next year. You can't now, between now and Tuesday, do what they are going to be empowered to do through an open citywide public process over a year, of which they will then submit to us, and we will have 6 months to try to come up with that. To start opening, those are the very kinds of things that open it up. When you start talking about, for example, 3 officers, we don't even know how many officers these neighborhood councils are going to have, whether they can even choose them, whether they're going to be open town forums. You're beginning to raise a myriad of questions that can't possibly be answered. That's why the process is set up the system. Mr. Ferraro will have a committee that will work with Dunn for the year in which they do it and the 6 months in which the council has to deliberate it. All of the points you have raised, Mr. Fuhrer and Ms. Goldberg have raised, can be among the many other, I would send all of those to that ad hoc committee. They will be considered along with all of the rest, but it is imperative that Mr. Burnson will be here next. If Mr. Burnson wants to send it to committee, as what I understood it was, the whole thing, I really oppose that. And to talk about the general substance of what we're doing now, he will be here next Friday on second reading. I strongly urge you to vote for this today in the way that Ms. Sikowski described. Accept Mr. Hernandez's amendment, vote for this today, and ask that all of the other amendments go to the ad hoc committee that Mr. Ferraro will set up to be considered along with the many other comparable considerations while in the process of setting up the neighborhood councils. That is the way to most efficiently and best get this done without opening up a Pandora's box that will never be able to close between now and Tuesday. I appeal to you, Mr. Fuhrer.
Mr. Ridley Thomas.
Mr. President, members of the council, I simply wish to say that hair raising is something that probably is a term of art as relates to whether one wants to move forward and or one wants to delay. The point is, we do not have to do this today. The fact of the matter is, from my point of view, there's no reason not to, in view of the fact that we have done a substantial amount of work, and many of us have had a clear amount of input at the council level and at the staff level. It would seem to me that the wisdom that has been collectively communicated by the council itself is such that we can make the kind of statement that can and should be made to invite the wealth of activism and participation to begin. That's the best of what charter reform has to offer, and we ought to be at the forefront of facilitating that, and there is nothing that has been offered here that is to be considered irreconcilable. It is essentially a question of moving this forward, and I'm prepared to